All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And today we're going to be working on a project that I've had lots of questions about. There's been a little confusion on the internet about some of the processes and the pros and cons. But today we're going to be talking about engraving glass. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the importance of focus and how to set up an odd-shaped glass that really has no single plane. So this is going to be if you're struggling or if you're wanting to get into engraving glass objects that don't necessarily have the flattest surface, that can be a challenge with most any laser on the market. But today I'm going to show you how you can overcome that if that's something that's causing you some headache. And I had a local maker come to me for assistance on a job, and that was kind of what sparked the idea of this video, was that I think it doesn't get enough attention. So we're going to bring a little attention to it. I'm going to show you my easy steps that I have came up with that works for me, and I'm getting really good engravings, consistent engravings on odd-shaped objects. But it's very machine specific. So stick around so you don't miss it. All right, guys, so this video, we're going to be talking about curved glass. I'm not necessarily going to be discussing the process for flat surfaces. We all know those are relatively simple. So I have several UV lasers. I have three Galvo UV lasers in my shop currently, and I've used all three of them on different jobs for different purposes. But there are times to where there's only one laser in my shop that can perform the job, and that is when you get into these odd shaped, no obvious focal point type jobs like this. The xTool F2 Ultra UV that I have, it kind of brings some technology and some advancements as far as its software goes that makes this possible easier than with other machines. I'm not saying that this is not possible with other machines, but you'll thank me if you try to do this. If you try to get these results with any other machine on the market compared to what I'm doing with this machine, you'll thank me, because I've tried getting these kind of results with other machines, but the software limitations, I haven't had the luck that I have with the X2 F2 Ultra. So we're going to be using that machine for today's video because it's the only way I can do this. So let's move over to the machine, and we're going to discuss the things that I'm having to do to it. And I'm going to walk you through briefly the setup in the software and show you the tools that make this possible. So let's move over to the F2 Ultra UV. All right, so before any of you ask, guys, and before we get started in the video and get too deep, I want to let you know that the jig that I've designed and I'm using for these JDS whiskey glasses will be a link to it down below to my Etsy shop where you can pick this file up if you're interested, as well as there will be a link to JDS's website, which is where we sourced these blanks that we've got here. And like I said, these are economical blanks. There are some variations, but with this process and this jig kit, you can make some money with these guys. So I'll drop links to the kit for the jig as well as the blanks down below. So let's get back to the video. All right, so here we are. This is my little workstation I've got set up over here for the F2 Ultra. I have the machine connected to the AP2. I think it's a good combo. It makes it to where I don't have to worry about another vent hole through the wall over here to put outdoor ventilation. So as you can see, I've got myself a jig that I've constructed out of 4 layers of 1/4-inch plywood. And the reason that using a jig or a fixture in this situation is so important is because this process is going to depend on the glass being exactly where we've got it set up to be in the software. Everybody knows that UV is king when it comes to glass. You cannot get better results on glass with any of the other lasers that are on the market right now that I'm aware of. The best results I have seen are from UV lasers. The xTool machine is only one of multiple UVs on the market, but for this application, in my opinion, they have the best suited tool for doing this job. So with this jig, what this is this allows for these whiskey glasses to sit in there and for me to set them very, very close to the same location every time. Now, so what you want to do when you put the glass in there is you want to find a side that when you rotate it and get it in there, you want to find a side that sits fairly flush, because like I said, there are irregularities in these things. Some sides will shake and wobble more than others. So once you find a side that's consistent, then you want to go with that side being up for your particular job. Now, the one thing that I will tell you is with the glass and the way that this software works, you're going to want to use some tape or some type of medium to coat the glasses so that the laser can map the job, because if not, the laser is going to penetrate through here and you're going to not get the topography of the glass that you need. All right, so now we're going to walk over to the computer, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through what we do to set this up and be able to engrave this in xTool software. And I want you to make sure that you understand what we're working with here. This thing is square on one end and round-ish on the other. So you have a odd shape here. You have an odd plane. There is no flat surface. There is no position that you could sit this in that this entire area would be in focus for a UV laser. As we all know, UV lasers, although they're really, really good with glass, they are very, very sensitive to small changes in the focus. So you want the focus to be as close to perfect as possible when marking glass. If not, you're going to have some variation in your marking. You're going to have some places that don't get engraved, and then some other places that maybe get engraved more than everything else. It's just going to be a mess. So you want to ensure perfect focus throughout the engrave to get consistent results. So if this is the kind of results that you want to get to where you can't see any lines, you don't have any chipping, it's all frosted, that's what we're after. So I'm going to walk over to software and I'm going to walk you through the process and show you how we do this. All right, guys, so for the demonstration, I'm going to be using the current version of xTool Studio at the time of this recording. The software has came a long way since the early days. We're going to select new project. Takes a few minutes here for everything to get loaded. Once it does load, we want to make sure that our machine is connected. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to hit the autofocus button to focus on the object. You remember I put the tape on the top of the glass to ensure that we get a good, accurate focus. And you can see that the glass is in the center of the work area as well. So when you're doing these things, that's one of the things that you need to make sure of. We're going to be selecting curved surface engraving and go from there with, the closest material we can find. And just going to kind of show you, there's a lot of different materials in here, but I just selected one of the glass settings, and I'm going to create my own custom glass setting from the testing that I've done. Now, you need to have an approximate area of, what you want to engrave, and I suggest don't get too close to the edges with this because it can be problematic later. And I want to just kind of show you how this goes as far as the setup here. We're going to set the area at 54, and then I'm going to start framing. What you're going to see is right there, we're right near the edge of the engravable surface of the glass. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize that, and I'm going to bring a couple of millimeters off of each size. And then you'll notice that as soon as I make those changes, the engraved area shrinks a little bit. I will say the smaller the area, definitely the easier it is and the less time it takes. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to stop framing. I'm going to show you the next thing. This is how the machine figures out the topography of the curved surface. And the more of these little intersections of these lines, the more points of measurement, the more accurate your engrave will be. So if you've got something like this, in my opinion, that has several different angles of like, one end curves this way and the other end drops off this, the more points you can put in there, the better. The more exact your measurements are going to be, and the more consistent across the material you're engrave. If it's a consistent, like round or just sloped one direction, you can get away with fewer points But the more complex of the twists and turns of the surface of your material, the more points you need, in my opinion. So I went ahead because in this situation, I would rather take a little more time than to destroy a tumbler or destroy a glass. I took a little more time, and I'm just going to run 10 by 10 squares. This gives me 100 points of measurement in that 54 millimeter by 54 millimeter area. It may be a little bit overkill to some folks, but in my opinion, knowing what I know about UV lasers, the sensitivity of the focus, the more the better, as long as you have the time and you can take the time to do it. And you can see that it's taking a few minutes, and I'm going to let this play out, and we'll just kind of discuss this as it goes. But you can see up in the top left corner of the screen, each time the blue dot shines on the material, it's taking a different measurement at that location. And you'll see in the center of the screen, you can see it kind of checking off those locations in the software as it goes. It's going to do basically the same thing that a 3D scanner does, just with less points of measurement. It's going to create a point cloud of sorts to create a 3D image of this glass. And for those of you that, know what a topographical map is, that's basically what the software is doing. Is this taking and is using, lasers to measure the distance to draw a topographical map of this surface. And what it's going to do is it's going to divide it into different elevations, so to speak, and each elevation is going to be a layer of engraving. So it's going to start with, like, say, the highest elevation. It's going to engrave that, then it's going to move down enough to stay in focus. Second layer of elevation, third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer, however many layers that it takes, that's how far it's going to move. And the more of a variation of your object, the more layers you're going to have that it's going to have to move down through. Now, one thing that I will say that I'm very impressed with is the fact that you can't see the lines in the engrave. I was really afraid that with glass, because glass is one of those that, if you mess up on glass, it seems to be noticeable. But I haven't seen any lines where this thing is advancing downward. It's not noticeable in the end result, as you've seen with the image that I've shown you. You just can't see it. So that, if I was going to try to explain that in layman's terms, topographical map is kind of the way you need to kind of think about it. That's what it's doing here, or 3D image. If you're into 3D printing, this is the same process as a 3D scanner. But we're coming up on the last few points of measurement. And like I said, this is not the fastest way to do it, but if you know of a UV laser on the market that you have access to, that can do this, that, the average person could afford anyway, let me know, because so far I think xTool has the monopoly on this type of activity. So there's your point cloud, or your 3D image, so to speak, that was generated by that. And you'll see here that it's rounded on one end and kind of semi halfway flat on the other. But that is an odd shape right there. That would definitely be challenging for any other Galvo UV laser. I've got, a couple, and neither one of those machines could do what this machine's doing. So we're going to bring the graphic in and go ahead and get started on this design now. You guessed it. Using the logo, because, I got to make sure that if somebody steals my video, I got to make sure everybody knows who it actually belongs to. So we're going to take and put the logo in the work area. I will say this, if using my jig, if you want your engraved area to be higher up on the object, you have to start this process in the center of the work area. So what you would do is you would just slide the jig up or down one hole by using the screws to get it to the location that you want it to be in. And you can see there how it's kind of shaping up to put the image on the little point cloud there. I wish it would show you the actual layers, like each layer individually, but it doesn't do that. But yeah, I'm going to just throw some settings in here. These are settings that I devised after yesterday and a little bit of testing today to be the best settings for all-round use on this glass. There were mistakes made. There were 2 of these whiskey glasses that got cracked because, like I said, thinner text-like graphics are different than the larger graphics, so you can crack them if you get to, you get to hitting it too hard. And the settings that we're going to be running are going to be 100% power, 100 speed, 1 pass, 500 LPC, and 40 on the frequency. And those are settings, like I said, I derived from a couple of days of testing. So we're going to move over to the laser after I send the file over before we hit the start button. And I'm going to carefully, without moving the glass, remove my tape so that it is off of the glass. Now, could you engrave through the glass? Maybe. I did not do it because I was afraid that it would generate too much heat and crack the glass. But at this point, we have sent the file to the machine, and it's just a matter of waiting to see what the engrave looks like. So we'll check back here in just a second. All right, I hope this helps, guys. This has been a learning curve for myself too, because even though I have used UV lasers on a lot of glass, I usually try to stick with glass that is flat. It just makes life easier. But with this job and trying to help these folks out, as well as many of you other guys that have emailed me, messaged me, DM'd me requesting information on it, I felt like it wasn't adequately explained, or maybe people just hadn't seen the video. So it's like, you know what, good opportunity for a video and to try to show you guys what the machine is capable of doing. And these are good results. Like I said, you're going to want to do the process the way in which it works best for you. To get the best results is not going to be the fastest results. So you have to figure out where you are as far as, do you want speed or do you want quality engrave? Because there's that little bit of, you could go either way. You could do this faster, but you're going to run a greater risk of having some coals that you're not going to be able to use. Or you could go slower and have pristine looking glasses, but it's going to gobble up a little more time. But that's something, as a business decision or as a hobby decision, you need to make yourself. Me personally, I would rather sacrifice a little extra time to do the job and get the job looking right before I give it to the customer. That way it ensures more future jobs to come. So, you know, time is money, but sometimes, you know, time can cost you money as well, because wasted blanks. So there you go. Those are my tips. Those are the secrets, I guess you could say, which is not a secret. I'm telling everybody. But those are the things that I would recommend you look at when you get ready to do some of these. And so if you have this machine, now you know the potential, what it can do. Like I said, this is not an xTool video. I'm under no obligation with xTool to make any further videos with this machine. This is just a video that I feel like helps highlight the differences that a lot of people ask us about on Sunday nights in the live show. Which machine is better for what job? And that's why we always say it depends on what you're planning to do with it. There are some features that Lightburn and other softwares have that xTool doesn't currently have, but this is a pretty handy feature, especially when it comes to glass, where focus is very important and very critical. So let me know down below what you think of the video, and if you like this video, there's plenty more down there where this one came from. So if you hadn't already, hit the button down below, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Until then, be safe and have a good day.